But of course, this has been a big issue. A family of a Victorian coronavirus victim today has labelled the protesters planning to ignore the bans on mass gatherings as despicable. And in Melbourne, businesses have expressed outrage that they're being forced to abide by strict patron limitations, while the protesters, seemingly tomorrow, will be able to flood the streets with no recourse to the rules. People across the country are angry because it seems like there's one set of rules for some and no rules for others. So Feedback Friday, my question today, it almost wrote itself up on the Facebook page, went this: given the COVID restrictions, should these mass protests planned for Saturday be allowed to go ahead? Well, here's what you've had to say. Jenny Wynne believes if the marches can go ahead, restrictions for everything should be lifted. Graham Woodruff says, I've spent the entire time asked of me in isolation to keep us safe. Why should our gains be lost? Ross Preen thinks, as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off now. They have just shown that they were never serious about it all along. Jan Norton says, makes a mockery of the health advisors and the coronavirus rules. We have all been advised to adhere. Sky News contributor and host of the Jane Marwick podcast show, The Fabulous Show, Jane herself joins us now from Perth. Right, Jane, let's get straight into it. What's your position on the protests?
Oh, I agree with your Facebook contributors, Peter. It makes an absolute mockery of everything, particularly in states like Victoria, which have still such strict social distancing and lockdown rules. But isn't it interesting? I was listening to Nick Rees on with Chris Kenny, who said, oh, the Brumbies protest was allowed to go on. Now, I saw Bev MacArthur on with you yesterday. They were only allowed 20 people socially distanced for that protest. We know that these people aren't going to adhere to the social distance protesting, and they're the very people who will take to Twitter and absolutely hang others out to dry, people who fall foul of the social distance rulings, driving things, all kinds of other times when someone does the wrong thing. These are the very people who like to sort of really tar and feather. Well, let's see them have their protest tomorrow, 20 people like the Brumbies socially distanced.
Yeah, look, they could knock themselves out if they want to do 20 and sit inside the rules. The issue is we're talking 20,000 had registered on Facebook pages. I think there's 30,000 in Melbourne. Protest organisers in Victoria have told anyone who attends tomorrow, and I'll put it up on the screen, they've said they should be self-isolating at home for a few weeks after the demonstration. Now, how is that acceptable? It was only a week ago the Premier Daniel Andrews made it clear that any business requiring workers back in the office in June, unless absolutely necessary, would cop a $100,000 fine. We've got restaurants and bars in this country going to the wall because they can only serve 50 people at a time. But if you're a protester, particularly if the issue is a left-wing cause, well, all bets are off.
Yeah, all bets are off. It's Bell the cat, hasn't it? We know that we're all in this together, remember, Peter? There is one rule. If your politics are of a certain type, if you're in a certain corner and everybody else, you know, too bad. It makes an absolute mockery of it, as if they're going to self-isolate after that, you know. But the idea that you dob in your boss and your boss gets fined. So the Premier is definitely sending mixed messages. These Premiers have got to be pretty careful, actually, because there's been a lot of goodwill around the nation. People have done their best. I think some people are still pretty frightened, to be honest with you. They've got to be very, very careful. People have followed the rules, even though there's been times when people thought this is over the top. The Australians have behaved impeccably. They better be careful that the political goodwill will run out very, very quickly if on the weekend Victorians and New South Welshmen see lots and lots of people on the streets not adhering to social distancing. Those people aren't going to self-isolate. They're going to want to go to work and do all of the things they want to do, but they're special. Remember, they're special. They're not like the rest of us.
Well, I'll be looking forward to a practical expression of their support for Indigenous Australians as opposed to breaking the rules and protesting over the next little while.